Well, please join me in welcoming Ross as our final speaker of this afternoon's segment.
Just push that. Start of the work week. Sun shining. We've got our to-do list primed. But we have to recognize the reality, which is siloed structures and piecemeal processes. Look over here. We've got some back and forth over what is the strategy we should go after, one for our providers or our consumers. And this is a content writer caught in the debate around what the data is telling us about what material should be prioritized for what channels. And I've seen this. Another less than successful review because our digital assets are misaligned and caught in legal limbo. What once looked to be a productive week is a distant dream, and we're waving for help because the context switching won't stop. Head in hands, we wonder, is there help, or is the world at work against us for good? But no need to hang heads. This is not defeat. This is just the beginning of the story of how the right structure and process helps pharma marketers unleash their productivity. And I know spoilers are frowned upon at times, but I at least have to show you a glimpse of the happy ending. And so with marketing agility, we see very real results. We see people-first culture, happy employees and customers, because a way of working through that operational effectiveness brings value sooner, learning sooner. And those learnings turn into the business impacts because we can take advantage of innovation and we can drive towards what the customer really needs. We'll revisit this before we wrap, but let me talk a little bit more about what this Agile is. So Agile is this flexible approach to being customer-centered and delivering that value. In a nutshell, we want to create clarity and focus, getting the right people on the right work at the right time. And in order for these behaviors and these mindsets to manifest, we need the systems to support it. We need a responsive structure. We need adaptive processes. We need that to unlock the potential of the people. And so that's what we'll focus on today. Specifically the structure and process. Could go on in detail about any one of those, but dynamics of that which has unleashed the productivity of people. Now structure, it's an amazing thing. It shapes movement, it amplifies force and can create scale. It can hinder or it can help. Harvard professor Alfred Chandler said, unless your structure follows strategy, inefficiency results. If your structure, though, meets the strategy in your organizational design and your operating model, that's where magic happens. So we're going to look at this organizational design and operating model in a little more detail. So with an organizational design, we really want to bring teams together around the strategy. Strategy evolves, right? So our design of the organization should as well. When we think about this, we need to start to shift that paradigm around the organization as the rigid hierarchy to the organization as a nimble network. Now, when we're able to do this and create the more adaptive system and approach, what we see is we're connected but independent in the right ways. We have a focus on the right outcomes with end-to-end delivery capabilities, and we have flexible and fungibility to the resources we deploy. Now, this is a bit of a high-level look, but if we look at more of how does this actually manifest for something like a pharma marketing org, what we'll see here is an agile marketing model. We've got leadership teams, strategy group, execution teams. If we look first at the execution teams, what we've got going on is a reason for people to collaborate and come together, focused around a value stream or a customer, payer, patient, provider. What they then come together around is that cross-functionality. So we've got campaign planners, strategists, copywriters, so on, working together, and they have KPIs to prioritize their work and decide how they're going to deliver it. If we move down to that strategy group, this is a group that sits in the middle, but they're more than just middle people. This is where they help bring that strategy to life, as the name entails. So we're talking about taking strategic direction from the leadership team so it can be guidance to the execution teams. We're talking about taking impediments that are at the organizational level from execution teams and bringing to the leadership team's attention. You've got leaders and strategists, subject matter experts from the likes of compliance, legal, field representatives, coming together to stay connected so that they can enable the broader system with reprioritization, replanning, so on. And then last but not least, the leadership team sets that strategic vision. They set those objectives. They remove those impediments I mentioned. And they're consisting of executives and select members of that strategy group who really come together then more at that organizational level, work across business units. You're going to see on the side there's that pack. When you get enough scale to it, what you've got is collections of those strategy groups and execution teams around brands or offerings. So they might be focused on something like heart health or chronic care conditions. And what you really get here is now leaders, team members, able to use something like an operating model to go after the most important work. So when we talk about an operating model, Tony Robbins says where focus goes, energy flows. And that's what we're trying to create here. In an operating model, we want to connect that focus and that flow and that energy. So when I talk about something like a strategic operating model or connecting things, such as the vision all the way through the tactics, I like to think of a steel thread because it offers strength to keep something securely anchored, but allows for movement. Now, when we think about something like our long-term strategies all the way down to our short-term deliverables, let's think about a magnified force. We're braiding those steel threads together like a cable. Think of a suspension bridge. It's bearing the tension because we want safe passage of something like our precious campaign cargo. That's what we want out of our operating model, moving with speed and purpose so that we can get from one end to the other despite internal or external circumstances. Now, when we layer this across a time horizon, we can start to see how we get that incremental value. We also see that steel thread coming into play across the levels and layers where we've got leadership teams taking their vision, strategy groups connecting into it to turn it into a strategic outlook, quarterly objectives, and those execution teams connecting in to break down the deliverables, break them down to weekly and daily tactics, and it all starts to work together and humming along. Now, with this, we can now start driving these people towards a flowing of the work in the right way. And what we mean by the right way is flowing the work to a team, not individuals flowing around it. And why that's important, because it's pretty plain and simple. Networks and teams are more effective than individuals and silos. And when you get this working, you can start to harness that at a greater level as teams, as collectives, using the right process. So the right process helps create a strength and stability in the system to drive towards your strategic priorities. Similar to structure, you want your process to be strong, but not rigid. You want it to be flexible, but not break. When you look at a good process, it improves work that flows through it. A bad one, though, can frustrate the brightest people and destroy the most brilliant system. When we look at the right process, we want it to have VIP treatment. And what I mean by that is visualized, iterative, and prioritized. Seeing is believing. And when we talk about an agile way of working, we talk about specifically a backlog and a board. Backlog is not where work goes to die. A backlog, in an agile sense, is actively managed. What its purpose is to help that team look at the right work at that right time. We want the backlog to be representative of all the work. So that's the campaigns, those deliverables, experiments, maybe even future ideas. And then we organize it based on customer and business value. Now, we couple the backlog with the board. Most agile ways of working use some type of board, and it's really a workflow that shows everything you need to go from the start to the end. Now, we want to move this work and flow it through the board. We want it to be moved as effectively as possible, so we look to break down those campaigns into those deliverables and tactics, because that'll achieve optimal flow. And flow is important. So that's our intent. We want to flow value to the customers. We want to get those learnings so we can flow them back into the system and repeat. And the board also allows that visualization so we see where's work getting blocked? Where are there dependencies? Do we have bottlenecks? Because then we can continuously improve on that process. Now that we've got some visualization. Let's talk about iteration. So what we want to do now is create rhythms and routines to optimize that flow even further. Now, with that board and that visualized workflow, that's a great start. But we have to account for other dynamics, such as the people involved. There's many things that go on when we have to start to think about flowing the work iteratively through our process. And in order to do that effectively, we need to account for those people and how you drive value from one end, from the start, all the way to the finish. Now with this, we have routine efforts that take place. So typically, we talk about planning on a routine basis that then allows us to take that backlog we talked about, highest order of work. You can move it through iteratively and incrementally, and you can reflect on it often. Now, there's not one size that fits all or one methodology that fits all, but Kanban and Scrum are a couple frameworks that commonly come into light. Quick difference between them is that with Kanban, it's sort of choose your own adventure to a degree, or the team really decides when and where they take advantage of rhythms and routines. The iteration is this. In Scrum, we leverage things a little more about a time box. So a few week time frame to bring work through collectively and move it from one end to the other so that you can have the routine and planned times where you deliver, where you reflect. Kanban can be great when we don't have as much plan or we can't plan the work out as far. We want small batch sizes. Scrum can be great in an iterative campaign development where there's a priority on being able to deliver according to set milestones or realize value at set dates. But regardless of which approach is taken, marketers typically will borrow across them and create a hybrid work that works best for them. And regardless of what approach they take, prioritization is key to deliver the value. So in an agile way, it's not about doing the same work or more work. It's about doing the right work. And that's about saying no to the okay, not now to the good, so greatness can be achieved. Now, there's no shortage of prioritization frameworks out there, from simple to complex, but you want to focus in on what is the data you have available and what level of validation do you need in order to align around what's a high-value item. Let's take this impact effort matrix to see how you can add some prioritization punch. So what we have is able to, as the name entails, look and categorize things based on the impact and effort. So the top quadrant, quadrant 1, those are the must-dos. High value, low hanging fruit, low effort. We move over to quadrant 2, we have to think through this a little bit more. This is about deciding when to do it, because other work can easily crowd it out, because this is a higher effort but high impact there, or we want to break down that work so that we don't get a too big project that doesn't move. If we move down to quadrant 3, low impact, low effort, we have to be mindful here, because even though it's low impact, we can still run the risk of it being urgent or wanting to stay busy with things. Now, if we move over to 4, which is the delete, this is high effort but low impact. We might think no brainer, don't do, but we have to recognize this work. It could be a web page that we revisit often to make updates, but we don't reflect upon are people actually using it. And so regardless of this work falls, prioritization is important, because when everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. And so that's why it's critical to have that VIP treatment to your process. Visualize it so we see it, iterate upon it, incremental delivery, and prioritize it so we know which needs to come in first. And when we get that right structure and right process, we are able to unleash the productivity. And with this agile marketing story unfolding, it's time for us to revisit that happy ending. So there's many things written out about the benefits of agility, but this slide is specific to what I've seen with pharma marketing organizations bringing marketing and agility together. It's not like clockwork, but I have seen a sequence to how this plays out. So if we look at 12 o'clock first and move on, we do see the people impact come first typically. Happy employees, improvements to that morale, because there's a way of working that's engaging, leading directly to delighted customers because they're receiving value sooner. They're seeing iteration based on the feedback they share and those learnings, which feeds into, we pass 6 o'clock, we're getting the operational effectiveness. High value work, removing of the low value. We're eliminating waste in what we're delivering, as well as saying no to the high impact or the high effort work. And when we move past 9 to the top of the hour, those bottom line impacts show to the tune of tens of millions in cost savings that then we can reallocate to where they do the most good, where we get highest return on ad spend and return on investment. So This is about getting the right people collaborating on the right work through a prioritized and visualized manner at the right time with proper prioritization. And we get this when we have that right structure and that right process unleashing the productivity of the people. If you too are eager to master marketing agility, ask yourself these questions. Is your structure designed around the customer for value delivery? Is your process getting that VIP treatment, visualized, iterative, prioritized? And with the productivity you're seeing, are you harnessing what matters most? Seeing people shine, having your operations thrive, and business boom. To get some of these answers and also write your own marketing agility story, we provided a few resources. You can scan the QR code. We've got a URL down there as well. And what you'll find here is a pharma marketing transformation success story. We've got a set of resources on an Agile Marketing Quick Start Guide. It goes deeper into what I talked about today, as well as going into additional comments like things like work in progress limits or the risk of context switching and multitasking. Also, if of interest, you can book some time with me. I'm always happy to have follow-up conversations. On that note, we're probably running to break, but I'm here afterwards, happy to have conversations now or later, hear your perspectives and thoughts. Sort of on that topic, my colleague Shannon and I are here. If you have reactions, we'd love to talk to you. If you'd even be willing to record, love that. We'd be very wanting to share such things on our social. For that time and energy you spend, we also would be able to give a little of a swap and provide you a bottle of champagne, or if you that's not quite your cup of tea, we've got other things like a book on mastering marketing agility. So in closing, thank you and cheers to unleashing productivity with marketing agility.
Thank you, Ross. Wonderful. So we're going to hop right in.